Vermeer.
Okay. Part of this is Barbara. Good morning, everybody. Part of what we talked about on Monday, I got the second part of it, but everything relates to what S has been facilitating regarding the eighth sense. We talked about as long as we don't know what we know, there's always the opportunity to learn something new. In other words, when we think we know it, there can be that opportunity to put up defenses because we don't want to hear anything else because we think we got it. But as long as we don't know what we know, there's always the opportunity to learn something new. We are who we are and where we are, not geographically, but consciously, because we choose to close our eyes and open our eyes. We're in a great place now in terms of our consciousness. Yet there's no space not so limited that we can't expand into it. Because when you're talking about spiritual things, there is no limit. Pastor challenged us to do what we are destined to do, change the world by repurposing energy with our thoughts and our focus. We've died to everything we could explain and are living in a place, a space that we can't explain. Someone asked the question about whether Jesus used the eighth sense and how he used the eighth sense. And the example given were a couple of things. I only pulled a couple from there, but there were other examples given. But one was the fact that Jesus saw, everything Jesus saw was life-changing for someone else. How did he know the woman at the well had other husbands and the one she was living with wasn't hers? How did he know the woman with the issue of blood touched him? These are just a couple of examples of the many, most all of which Jesus lived using the eighth sense. Our overwhelming desires for mankind to know who it is. And that was the final thing I think Pastor reminded us of, what our overwhelming desire is. That's most of what I can think of immediately, Pastor.
Thank you, Bob. I wanted to connect something to that as you were speaking, Bob. But first, let's ask you their questions, and then see after that. We often talk about the subconscious, the consciousness that's below our daily consciousness, or an awareness that is deeper than our daily awareness. What the awareness that's below, or that we call our subconscious rather, is a type of awareness that is available to us when we see through the eye, as opposed to the eyes. So what is the purpose of the subconsciousness? And what does it really mean when we talk about things that are in our subconsciousness? The consciousness that we are aware of is earth consciousness. There's awareness that we see daily. The decisions that we make based upon the awareness that's available to us. What is the subconsciousness then? The subconsciousness is a memory bank. it is a bank where the memories of our ancestors have been deposited. And the memories of our ancestors are redeemed from this bank when we start becoming aware of this eighth sense, or when we become aware of the need, of the necessity, the I. And when we see with the I, that is expressive of living in accordance with the eighth sense. There are those of us who feel like the eighth sense is something that we have to reach for, but it really isn't. The eighth sense is always available and is always being used. We just don't always recognize it. You don't think about the sense of touch, simply experience it. We don't think about smell, we simply experience it. We don't have to really consider the eighth sense. We simply embrace it. And by embracing it, we begin to, with the dividends from the bank of our subconsciousness, the bank of our memories that have been deposited by our ancestors. When we look at some of our predecessors, our ancestors who had very little formal education, yet they were able to bring into existence things like the cotton gin. Where did that come from? Or they were able, even with being educated, I mean, like George Washington Carver, the chemist, look at what he was able to do. But he did not attribute that to him being exceptionally intelligent. He contributed. He said that this came to him as he walked in the mornings in the midst of nature, and how he absorbed from the universe. He absorbed from the ancestors, actually. I think that's the way he pretty much stated it. Of course, I am paraphrasing it. And this his daily walks is where these thoughts came to him, or rose up in him, or the bank vault was opened, and these thoughts were able to escape the vault into his consciousness, so that he could do what he did with the peanut and several other vegetables that he experimented with. So that's also the eighth sense in action. And I doubt very seriously if he knew anything about the eighth sense. I doubt very seriously if he knew anything about the seventh sense, for that matter. But however, he was able to accomplish what he did. And when we look at other people like Harriet Tubman, who had no formal education, versus Frederick Douglass, who did, when you look at those two, you don't see a great difference between the two, other than the way they expressed themselves, but the knowledge that they had, the understanding that they had, the desire for freedom that they both had. Where did it come from? How did Harriet learn to move as she did in moving the slaves from the enslaved people from plantations to a place of freedom? It's because of that subconsciousness. The memories of the ancestors were available to her. So that's pretty much how I've begun to see this eighth sense as a memory bank. Thank you. Unless there are questions or comments.
Comment on two things on that, Pastor. Just, there's always I guess whenever I I listen and I always try to see the parallel to where people are, maybe where they're falling short, or there's sort of a different philosophy on it that's got them thinking, but they're not really all in to the point to where they tap into something like the eighth sense. And then going back to what you said earlier about Jesus, one of the biggest things Jesus did in comparison for us was he made his disciples that followed him aware of what was inside of them. They were all different individuals, different backgrounds, different mindsets, different thoughts, by no means perfect at all, but he made them aware of what was inside of them. And so that's sort of where we are today. Like we're talking about it, but even for each other, we're helping each other become more aware of what's inside of us. And then the other thing, when you were speaking, the world and religion has made attempts to try and make strides to what they think is maybe an eighth sense or something that a philosophy. For instance, the "What Would Jesus Do" bracelets was just a different philosophy. And then in the past, when you talk about our elders, the memory of our elders, the easiest way to think about that is when we step back and think, okay, what would our father do? What would my mother do in this point? What did my dad do? And you have some people that take it to the extreme that they feel they have to, not an extreme, but their focus is best if they go back to the graveside of an elder and sit there and reflect on what they would do when things get tough for them. They try to tap into that memory there. So people are making different attempts to do things externally to try and reach it. And what we're talking about now is that we understand we reach these things internally, but there are always attempts to try and gain the intuition or insight by putting a bracelet on to help you remember something, how to achieve it, or whether it just be, driving down to a cemetery where a loved one is buried and you go there to kind of like, I guess, talk to them. But these are all external things that comfort people and try to, to move them, but they kind of miss the mark when they don't realize that it has to come from inside first. So I just wanted to say that.
Hey, this is Nick. I just have a comment in addition to that. What most of philosophy and modern science concerns itself with is the refining our intellect and our intellectual ability to analyze a problem or whatever. But the eighth sense, and just like we were just saying, you don't need any formal training to awaken it and use it. And that's because it is not a function of our ability to intellectualize anything. Rather, it's a function of our ability to become aware of what is already. That's it.
Hello?
Oh, yeah, yes.
I'm done. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, I definitely agree with that. That's a good way to express it, Nick, because we try, and and that goes back to not being informed or aware, and so you try to attempt in different ways, and what you think is suitable for you, but it's really not the the process that we're talking about in discussion. But they do try to, I don't want to say commercialize it or just make it, something they found a self-help book. When you can, books always inspire us and give us insight, but we don't internalize it and figure out how to bring it out inside of us. It doesn't manifest itself in the way that we're talking about the A sense and the true sense.
Any questions?
Good morning, everyone. Just based on what everyone has said, the part of not knowing to know, I agree with that. I just say it a little different. Of you always can improve on improve. Yet I do agree with what ST stated that Miss Barbara reinforced. The situation of the memory bank and relying on people who came before you or became before us. I'm on a committee and they suggested something about a grant, and the majority of the people are in favor of the grant. And I gave my perspective of, have we looked at rolling up our sleeves before pursuing a grant? And I'm just thinking about Jackson, Mississippi, Ferris Street. That was a thriving street for the African American. And that's where Medgar Evers' office is, right on that street. And they didn't have a grant, yet they just rolled up their sleeves and they made things work. So I don't know if that's relying on ancestors or people who came before me. Yet I do know everything has a memory bank. One of the first lessons I was given in trucking, never sleep in the driver's seat. That seat is made for driving. Sleep in the sleeper or sleep over on the passenger side. You don't want that seat to ever take on the energy of it's for something else other than driving. So everything has a memory bank out here. So that's it. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
The difference with grants and what happened in the past is that we have lost our sense of self-care. We don't look at each other the way we once did, in that we truly believe that we were our brother's keepers, and as a result of that, we were able to build neighborhoods and communities and actually villages in the midst of cities that were self-sufficient. Those villages were destroyed, and the opportunities and methods to re-establish those villages was also destroyed at the same time. And that is one of the reasons that grants are out there. However, let's keep in mind that grants are also used to control you because of where they come from. If it's a program that's really viable and has great potential, 9 times out of 10 it will not get funded. Unless the control of it remains in the hands of those who have destroyed the communities in the first place. As far as energies are concerned, one of the things that I say when I'm doing premarital or marital counseling is never argue in your bedroom. If you have a disagreement, have that disagreement in a different place in the house of the energy that you leave with that disagreement. That is no different than what George said about the driver's seat. That is very, very real. One of the broader things about that is this. Don't ever begin to do something that you don't intend to continue to do, especially in relationships, because the energy of it can be very into that relationship. Having said all of that, how does all of this energy work? How does it remain in that space? What happens is the energy is different than the energy that cells of the body. The cells of the body has a memory, and memory is energy. Muscle memory is energy. And the life of that energy, or the source of that energy, is the universe itself. And one of the things about energy that we have not probably thought or talked about is that the depth of energy is founded in, the depth of life is founded in energy. And the more energy, the more life that we embrace, the more energy that we find that we have. Now, what do I mean by the life that we embrace? When we embrace the reality of loving kindness, forgiveness, mercy, etc., we are embracing life itself. And the life itself is seen in the physical world, or the bridge between the spiritual life and the self is seen in the physical world as melanin. And when we embrace it is difficult to embrace the reality of life if your desire is greed. And one of the reasons that we have been so helpful to each other and others is because of the depth of the bridge between life and physicality, which is melanin itself. And I know you keep hearing us talk about it, but if it were not real, if it was not a spiritual entity or a spiritual bridge, then it would not exist. So I guess the bottom line of what I'm saying is that we have not truly lost our desires to build a community within a community. What we have lost is our memory of it. We have covered it up with our desires to fit into a society that does not want us. We have hidden it in the depths of our soul because we are ashamed of it. There are so many of us who are ashamed of what we look like and who we are. We criticize the loudness of who we are, and when we get excited, or when we are at a cookout or a picnic or whatever you want to call it, we are lively, and we're ashamed of that. However, when we see other people doing the same thing, they are having fun. Those kinds of things are the things, George, that causes us to forget or to not want to remember the types of community that we had that did not rely on grants but relied on each other. How can we change that today? We are beginning to see the change comes with us. The more we embrace the essence of our being, the more we are able to bring into existence a community that goes beyond the segregated communities that we had in Tulsa or in Durham or in Union for that matter. We began to move in the direction of an integrated community, a community that has an integration of ideas and concepts, a community that takes the best ideas and concepts that are beneficial to humanity and put them into practice, opposed to an assimilation, meaning that you leave everything that you know. If you forget about your forgiveness and love and your kindness, and you seek vengeance. You forget about that you are your brother's keeper, and you take care of you and yours and alone. This is the change that we desire, to change from assimilation to integration. And when I talk about integration, I'm not talking about racial integration as much as I'm talking about the integration of the concepts that are beneficial to humanity. And if we look at the origin of the beneficial concepts for humanity, if we look at them through the eyes of Jesus, we see, as he was saying at the onset, how Jesus took the best from the different backgrounds of those of his disciples and made them aware of who they are based upon what they knew. In other words, he met them where they were in order to get them to where they needed to be. And that is our purpose today, to meet people where they are and bring them to where they should be. And what should all of us be? We should be in a space that will benefit humanity, not a space that's just for us, but a space that will benefit humanity. Thank you.
Hey, good morning once again. One of the things about energy, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, or if you agree with me, you show your support. When you look at leadership, and in order to have leadership, to some degree, you do have to have some degree of intellect and or intelligence. And the energy that's out here with leadership, the majority of it is, who's ever the leader, you can't critique the leader. And I think the best form of leadership as it relates to energy and doing humanity well is the leadership that you can critique and reject. Just in that meeting, when I said that, there was a shift of energy. And some people say, who are you? I introduce myself, blah, 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 blah. And they said, I support you. And I responded back to the group, hey, everyone needs an ally. However, if I say something that you don't agree with, please have the same passion in disagreeing with me as you did when you agreed with me. I learned that from my father growing up, yet seeing Reverend Richard when he leaves. When Ron would take me home when we were at the other facility, Red would call Ron, how did my lecture go today? Ron would say, hey, I wish we would have stayed more in these oranges than the tangerines. And Red would say, hey, give me a friendly tug on that neck because we need to pick that up and give it a little bit more attention. So this whole aspect of energy, if you are a leader, if you're doing it, cool. And you may be doing it not knowing what you're doing. If you are a leader or a shepherd, establish with the people that you're leading, you have every right to critique me. When I'm training someone who just got out of truck driving school, I explain to him or her the syllabus. This is what I want you to learn today. When we're driving up the road, hey, what did you learn? Make my steps count, not to touch things 2 and 3 times. Then I will ask that individual, what are the areas that I need to improve on? So this whole aspect of energy, all the teachers at Great and New Faith, because that's most of my experience, I can critique you. I can reject what you say, and we still be buddy-buddy. So in your maneuverability of the 8th sense and maneuvering and feminine energy. If when you're leading, establish to the people that you can critique me. You don't have to agree with me. Does anyone on the phone disagree with me? And or does anyone on the phone support what I say? That's it.
When you're a leader, you don't have to consciously establish anything. When you're a leader, you lead. And during the course of your leadership, you're going to get questioned. And the way you respond to that questioning will let everyone know whether or not you are open to being critiqued. When you are leading, you don't give thought to what people think about you. You give thought to what you can do for those you lead. During the course of leadership, you don't think about the energy that goes into it. You just expressive of it. You don't wake up one morning and decide that you're going to lead people. That leadership or you walk into it without realizing what you're doing. There is a difference between being a teacher and they're those who can teach you how to play basketball, but they can't lead a team in playing basketball. There are those who can teach you in the classroom. However, they cannot lead that school. So when you talk about training someone, it's different than leading someone. Most people do not lead from the front as we have been taught. Leadership usually leads in the midst of those who are being led. That was something I learned early in life. Very rarely is the one who leads at the forefront of everything. If you watch very closely, I'll give you a classic example of that, one that all of us are familiar with. The leadership of Malcolm X was in the midst of the Nation of Islam, even though the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was seen as a leader. But when it came to the forefront, who leadership really was, that created a friction because the one who was seen as the leader could not stand to have himself being challenged to lead, when in essence he was not being challenged at all, which means that he himself was not, he chose himself to be a leader. And that I've seen that in the church. I've seen it in the church more than any place else. Usually the one who is least capable of leading is the one who is the moderator or the elder. The ones who are most capable of leading are usually the ones who are in the background, who make suggestions that makes leadership look good. So I'm saying all that to say this: every one of us, in one way or the other, we are all teachers, whether we realize it or not. Yet all of us are not leaders in the greater sense of leading movements. You can lead for moments in time, but movements don't end. They continue regardless of the person's demise. So we make that, I make that kind of distinction based on what I've seen. Now, to get back to where we were originally, understanding the eighth sense. When we are submissive to the essence of our being, it does not matter whether it is a James Richard or whether it is a George or whether it is a Tiffany. It doesn't matter. What matters is who is leading at that moment. And when I say who we're talking about is this, if the personality of James Richard is leading at that moment, it doesn't mean leaders. Because there are moments when we are together, when the leadership is in the hands of the burden of leadership rather is on someone else, a Barbara or ST or whomever. Why because all of us are one. And when all of us are one, then there are times when it is necessary for a different type of personality to be in the forefront of understanding for the benefit of the people who are being led. The necessity of that is not chosen by individual people. The necessity for that type of personality and leadership has been chosen by the universe. Look at what happened by virtue of the universe instilling in ST the necessity for us to follow the pathway of understanding the eighth sense so that we could be made aware that we have been experiencing it all of our lives. And now that we become cognizant of that experience, we are better suited now to be more submissive to the energy of the eighth sense. So this idea of leadership is complex yet simple. The other thing about this idea or concept of leadership is that it must do what is necessary, regardless of what we call the backlash. It doesn't matter what you have to endure after you do the right thing. What does matter is that you do the right thing. It would have been wrong if I had said to ST, well, that's a great idea about the eighth sense, but I'm going to do this. I never would have been able to do what he has been doing and leading us in this direction. Why? Because it took his personality, his energy of leadership in order to guide us along this pathway. Does that mean that he has been the primary person in seeing all of the concepts and seeing all of the nuances of the eighth sense? No, it doesn't. It means that he was the doorman. He was the one who opened the door to this, and once that door was opened, we are able to explore what's in that room of the eighth sense, so that we are more able and have a better set of capabilities of experiencing it and teaching others how to experience it. I hope that's fair enough and beneficial enough so that we are able to be more cognizant of our experiences with this eighth sense so that we are able to bring others along as we travel. Thank you. Questions or comments, ST?
And I was just sitting there thinking that's like a culmination of how we're supposed to function. I mean, like you were just really talking about how we're supposed to function, and the thing about it, like you said, I keep going back to the beginning. It's so important for each individual to see how it rises up in them. Like I can't do the way it the way that you do, or come to it the exact way that Ron does. Once we come to the awareness, then we function. And the other thing too that's so important about the eighth sense when we're talking about leadership is that the leader gets a pulse on on his people, and he's so intuitive to what the people need and what they're grasping, that he understands what approach to take. And that's one of the best qualities of leaders, that they kind of get a sense of what their people need and how to deliver it. And you just don't have that. That's why everyone is not leading in a given situation. It's more so that you can understand the material or understand definitions, but you really have to get a sense and be intuitive to what the pulse of the people are. And the other thing that we're getting so much better at this as a group and just as a body, of blocking the negative. Like, we don't allow a lot of negative talk in our vicinity. We definitely change that. We don't allow that negative energy. I can tell you, I came across a bunch of people this weekend and this entire week out in California that, just like they had a poor outlook on life, and I just wasn't going to allow that to, given where I'm at now, I wasn't going to allow that to just kind of sit in my midst. And it's okay for you to think that briefly or whatever, but I was like, I'm just not going to allow that. I was like, I'm just going to stay positive the entire time. And so all these things that you talked about, it's really, it comes down to a couple of things for us: being disciplined enough to accept it. Because some of us still, we run from it, or we don't fully embrace it or even accept who we are. Even going back to the example you gave about the party, you don't accept who you are. And then sometimes, because you try to assimilate, it's hard. We do it in religion, we do it in life, we do it at work, we do it when it comes to trying to get something for ourselves or to not put something in danger. And we've all been there where we don't want to put something in danger or losing something. And now we're understanding that we're never going to lose our identity. He can kind of come at me in different ways, but we've always, that protection, that survival mode, we've always been in survival mode. I bet we talked about it several months ago, and that was just driven by emotion and the other senses. But now when you get them all operating together, you get the eighth sense, you're not worried about surviving, because we are survivors. We understand who we are, and that identity is always the thing that I keep going back to now. Instead of reminding myself, what would Jesus do, I got to remind myself who I am, and just kind of that identity will take care of it. And then, so I just thought what you said was just kind of a culmination of a lot of stuff, and just pull it together from a perspective. And then in George, the other intuition you talked about as a driver, when the road is icy, when things are kind of chaotic in front of you, you are aware of it. And you do sense that something could potentially happen in front of you, so you're prepared, and so it's no different for us spiritually. We don't always know what's coming. We just know that we are prepared for it. So that's what I wanted to say on that part of it. Any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. This is GC. I wanted to respond to George's comment, in terms of his experience, as a professional truck driver, but in terms of his leadership. He spoke about intelligence, and what I received from what he was saying was, I felt the compassion in terms of him training others, and I didn't see it so much in terms of the intelligence, in terms of his intellect, but I heard the heart and the love for what he does in terms of wanting to help humanity. And I think seeing it from the spiritual perspective, or from the eighth sense, we talk about intelligences, but in terms of what I would just like to share as far as his intrapersonal intelligence related to his interpersonal intelligence, is just simply reflecting on his self-awareness to be able to help mankind, but applying it in that social awareness that he has to deal with others. And so, when Pastor talks about the importance, we all, are one yet many, that's the collective energy that we're able to bear witness to in terms of how we're able to bring loving kindness and harmony to that which we do. So I think being able to just recognize that I can see the physical attributes in terms of what he does in terms of his profession, but I also see the love for what he provides when you're doing it from the heart. And so I just wanted to share those thoughts because in his comment, in terms of responding, I just felt, the energy and I felt the love. And as we say, energy flows as our attention goes. And we know that energy, as I think Audrey may have said it before, energy can never be destroyed, never be created, always has been, always will be, moving in the form, through form, and out of form. So it's just the love of what we do. And that's the comment that I just wanted to share in terms of George's response. I'm done. Thanks for letting me share.
Well, thank you, George. I mean, and it's just like you always bring a certain perspective to that, and that's why I don't know. We all that's the expansion. If you can't expand for yourself, you got other people there that expands it for you because there's always something someone else may be aware of that you're not aware of, and even with that, that's another reason why we need each other to help that expansion because the expansion is sort of like it's a field that just stretches out, and so when you combine the efforts of everyone, then you're really talking about an expansion that removes a lot of tunnel vision and it kind of like expands our views on things so that we know what is there. It just makes us aware of just different attributes in each other, but that's that expansion that we talk about all the time. And so many people remove themselves from even trying to participate in being a part of an expansion because it's either ego, selfish, they don't want to try. And I heard that, said we go to these things, and you do pick up things from different people. And guy told us a question is, and I'll even ask him one there. He's like, "What's the opposite of success?" And people will look around and think, "Okay, well, the opposite of success is failure." And that's and I thought about it, and that's not true. And I thought about it. Yeah, the opposite of success is not failure. And when we take that off the table for us, that we want to do things because of fear of failure or fear of not being right, and that happens in religion so many times too. You go with the grain so that you always appear to be right, but that's not success. That's assimilation.
Yeah. And I see if I may, I just wanted to follow up on something that I said because I think is pertinent in terms of just being able to help humanity. In a previous conversation that I had with George, I know George's heart is always is working, to help young people. And he spoke on the subject of getting, your CDL license, as a professional driver because it's an occupation that can be rewarding, to young adults, who would like to be able to most importantly, become employed, but doing something that could provide for their family. And, he had mentioned on that subject of getting your CDL license. And, I shared that with some of the young adults, that I have the opportunity to work with. And just to, be able to not just get your license, but just the love of having someone, that has that leadership or has that skill where it opened up the doors for others. And so, again, I just wanted to put that out there in the macro because, again, it's through someone else's experience. I mean, it's more than driving a truck, it's an experience. And so I think that we all learn from nature. We all, are receiving. And so it's just a blessing to be able to appreciate nature. And for some people, driving can be a way of them not only fulfilling their desire, but to also, be a productive person to provide for themselves and their family. So again, I just wanted to share those thoughts because I thought it was relevant to the conversation that we're having. Again, thank you for letting me share that. I'm done.
No, thank you. And one of the other things I was thinking of when you were saying that is that, no matter what we do, and this is one of the other things we always have to impart to people when you're looking at profession or whatever, no matter what we do, there always has to be a spiritual or mental discipline to everything we do because so many of us can get certified to do things. And I know George is on the line, even with just driving the truck as you have to be disciplined. When you talk about being safe, there's a mental discipline and things you have to realize that you're not driving a Toyota Corolla or a car, and you have to have a certain amount of discipline the way you drive. And everyone may not be able to handle that from a mental standpoint. And this, you can wrap that around, and the pastor can refer to this too, that when you're given so-called position of pastor or preacher, there's a push to assimilate. But if we're truly going to be the man of God and lead people and really hear what is supposed to be delivered and follow through it, there's a certain amount of spiritual discipline that has to go along with it because so many times we know what to do, but we, whether through imbalanced earthly reasons, we put ourselves in positions not to do it. We do what we feel needs to be done to assimilate. And no matter what we do, no matter what your profession, no matter what you think, or you're going to have an awareness of the spiritual discipline it takes to pull that through. And I just wanted to add that when you were saying that, because it is a great thing to give someone a skill. We just always have to make sure we're there for the spiritual and mental discipline. And any thoughts or comments on that?
Yeah, I think that this whole concept of professional careers or whatever, when we look at it, it's no different than how we look at things spiritual. It shouldn't be anyway. If I am able to contribute to your spiritual understanding or expansion, it doesn't matter whether I do it the way you do it or someone else does it. The main thing is that it gets done, and no one way of doing it is more important than the other. And that is the same thing with whether it be driving the truck or whether it be cutting the grass. There are no professions more important than others. For example, the guy who stocks the shelves in the store is just as a truck driver who brings the food to be stocked. And the person who purchases what's on the shelves is just as important as the one who stocked the shelves. So what I'm saying is this: we have been taught in this society to hold in high esteem our doctors and attorneys and judges, etc. And during the pandemic, we were taught to hold into high esteem truck drivers. Truck drivers no important than the stockman, and the stockman no important than the purchaser. So all of these, we don't see things. We have not been taught. The Western way of thinking is not seeing things as everybody being a piece of the puzzle. And if any piece of the puzzle is missing, the puzzle is not complete. As we have been taught that there are more important pieces to this puzzle and the rest of it doesn't matter. That's not true. never has been, and never will be. And with this understanding of the wisdom that we are, we have to begin to watch how we speak, be very cognizant of how we reference our different aspects of this society, because every aspect of this society should be seen as a building block, a piece of a puzzle that has to be completed. One suffers as a and don't get me wrong. I'm sorry. Don't that just is super rich that they don't suffer. They suffer. It's just in different ways. We have been taught that a lot of people. That's not true at all. Money does not keep you from suffering. Your profession you from suffering. The only thing that puts us in a position to suffer the least two things that benefit is. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, and it goes back to what's in us as far as the identity. That's what keeps us grounded too. When you're saying and you were talking, I'm talking about what keeps us grounded, what keeps us from going so far out in the right field is that knowing who you are. Sort of like there's always been terms in the Bible of anchors and rock. No different than really the saying, and you know who you are, you know your identity. When you're an anchor or a rock, that person is grounded, who they are, they're aligned, and that's why so many people are looked at for support in difficult times, because that person is quick to pull back from and operate on who they are. And so there's no different for us to see our identity as all our solutions. One last thing I wanted to go back to when we were talking about the connectivity.
Excuse me, Ed.
Yes, sir.
Hey, excuse me, y'all. Y'all know I can't drive while I'm talking. One of the things I want to share with you about my occupation from a spiritual aspect, and I ain't never told no one this. My occupation wants females in every aspect. Load planners, dispatcher, operating a truck, driving a truck, terminal managers, mechanics. They want the female. The other part of it is with brothers or sisters, males or females. You didn't did a dime behind the wall. You didn't did a bid. My occupation to give you a chance. And from a spiritual aspect, my occupation operates in egalitarian. Egalitarian meaning everyone can eat at this table. When you look at occupations, you may have to have a certain vehicle to sell real estate. And that's what I love about my occupation, that from a personal aspect, I got some kind of relationship with the Creator, and not all things I like. And talking to the Creator. Yet, from a spiritual aspect, when you look at Apostle Paul writings, his writings are not on an egalitarian level. You compare Apostle Paul writings to a Bob Marley writings, or Peter Winston McIntosh, their writings, everyone eats at the table. So, this is what I love about my occupation. You can take care of family. You can take care of community. So many other occupations, you got to have a master's degree. Nah. You look at religion, some of your best teachers went to the cemetery. Some of your worst teachers went to seminary school. There's no vanity in what I do. Man, I got a whole lot of belly over my belt. All they care about quick, relocate this freight to locate it and locate freight to relocate. Yet everyone eats at the table. Trucking made a conscious choice. We want more females, and they did it. So from a spiritual aspect, when people say, George, you just love trucking because of money, man, you don't even know what I get paid. You make more than me. But it's the energy behind it. Everyone can eat at brothers and sisters who tripped up in life, and we all done tripped up. A lot of things I ain't just get caught on. My occupation gives you a chance. I'm glad Mr. George is up there in Philly saying, hey, trucking can get you there. You know, trucking brothers on child support, alimony, they can hop in this truck. At least you got a place to stay. So that's what I like about it. It's not about no money. It's really not. It's about that it gives people a chance, and it aids humanity. So if your occupation requires some, go ahead, Ray.
George, let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question. We're talking about the 8 cents, so I want you to relate that to your occupation, please.
Rev, I don't know too much about the 8 cents other than some of what you all have said have fallen on virgin ears of, your ear. So I concentrate on the ear. But I know something in my occupation is dealing with the 8 cents. I just can't connect it. But y'all folks who know about the 8th occupation, I rely on you. There are some things that you want.
George, I'm sorry.
All right, I'm about to back up. I can listen. Y'all go ahead.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say, the connection is you the connection once you understand who you are and how you function there and how you function around the people that work with you. There's one common thing with if you look at all earthly parts of occupation. There's always going to be politics there, and nobody's going to do it for free. So they got that commonality there that no matter where you at, nobody's going to work for a company for free when you look at the earthly sense of it. But when you look at the things you do there that you don't get paid for, the energy you bring, and the way you connect with people, and some of the attributes you bring in that regard, where you are affecting people's lives, that's over all occupations, but that's what you bring there. And once you get that awareness that that's the energy you bring, you don't get paid for that, and that's something because that's who you are. But I was just going to say, you're the connection there, and occupations are it's a means to, take care of us from a physical, financial standpoint. But, there's a connection there to this connectivity there with the people that are there. That's where you come in at. But I was just going to say that. Go ahead, Pastor.
Honestly, occupations that we do have absolutely nothing to do with the 8 cents. It does not matter what occupation you're engaged in. It has nothing to do with the 8 cents. But the 8 cents has everything to do with the occupation. When we, George's explanation, he likes it with not demeaning, hopefully. And so we're not talking about the physical things that we do to sustain ourselves in this earth. are the physical things that we do on this earth. What we are talking about are the spiritual things that we are engaged in order to sustain humanity in this earth. Because I can look at any occupation in this earth and see how destructive it is. One of the major reasons we have issues with the destroyed is because of the occupations, especially in this country. And one of them is truck driving because of the fossil fuels. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about the spiritual, because the spiritual is capable of overriding the damage of the physical occupations in this country, in this world, on this earth, period. The nobility of patient has nothing to do with the responsibility the responsibility that we have to mankind when we embrace who we really are. And that responsibility that we have to humanity is to restore the earth. And we cannot restore the earth until restoration for humanity. And the redemption or the restoration of humanity comes when we embrace who we are. Jesus taught us how to redeem humanity. Humanity cannot be redeemed, cannot be restored until we are restored. If truth within the boundaries of our understandings are not embraced in the way that we are supposed to embrace it, then it does not matter what profession you're in, everyone is going to be destroyed. Yet, if we make the decision to stay the course, which we have done, then we have opportunity to redeem humanity, not by an occupation, but by truth. And that redemption of humanity brings about a redemption to the earth, and it saves it from the destruction that is bordering on right now. So that is the reason I asked about the connection between the eighth sense and an occupation. There isn't any. We are the umbrella under which everything must function. And if we truly believe and embrace the reality that we are that umbrella, then everything that enters to enter the space for the purpose of destruction cannot do it, because we are the umbrella that protects it from that. We must be more engaged with the essence of who we are, and not from an academic point of view, upon our intellect, but based upon our desire, and totally from the aspect of our spiritual awareness. Without that, we may as well end it all in terms of our conversations. We are not on these phones. We are not on Zoom. We are not here 3 days a week to have an intellectual conversation. We are here to reassert ourselves into this earth consciousness, so that we can have a spiritual understanding of our conversation, for the abandon our spiritual experiences and not to expand our intellectual understandings. Intellectual transcend the spiritual experiences. It does not matter how intellectually strong you are. It does not mean that you are spiritual at all. Look at the intellectual understandings of Thomas Jefferson. His earthly intellect was strong enough for him to rewrite a Bible on his own and write about and talk about rather the how it is while sitting there with slaves. That's intellect that is devoid of spirituality. Religion is intellect. It's for philosophical intellect that's devoid of spirituality. There is absolutely nothing spiritual about a Baptist or Catholic, a Methodist, a Presbyterian, a Muslim, or a Jew or Hindu. Nothing spiritual about that. Every bit of that is philosophical intellect with no spiritual overlap. It uses the words to captivate an audience and hold that audience in bondage. It does not honor the words that is speaking. Only thing it cares about is the results of those words, making the speaker of those words, making them feel, the ones who are receiving words, feel superior to those who are the recipients of what's being said, without changing anything in the hearts of humanity. It is imperative that we understand the difference between this earthly intellect or this European intellect versus spirituality itself. And when we understand and grasp that, then we cease to lend any credence to those physical things, such as professions that sustains the body and the family. We lend no credence to that because we understand at this point that the real thing that sustains is the embracing of who we are. And everything else is secondary to that. There are provisions made when we seek the kingdom first and its righteousness, because everything else that is needed will be added. We thought for tomorrow. In other words, we are not concerned about a profession. We are not concerned about this idea of employment. Our major focus is spirituality. Because spirituality has no tomorrows. It always has the now. And the intellect is so weak until it believes that there is a tomorrow. The intellect is so unknowing until it truly embraces a reality that is not known to spirituality, that there is a tomorrow. There is never a tomorrow. Because when you get there, it is always today, which means that spirituality trumps all of that. Because spirituality is always the now. And simply because there is a hiding of the sun between the sun rising again, it doesn't mean that it has created a tomorrow. It has actually made it clear to us, or clearer to us, that it is always a now. And that is now, that now that is always in existence is punctuated by opportunities for wisdom. And out of that wisdom comes the light of enlightenment. And when we see it from this perspective, we live in today. We live in the now. And that is what makes provision for us throughout our existence on this celestial ball called Earth. But not only does it do that, it also undergirds and strengthens us so that we can become the light post or the guidance for humanity on this global ball. We are the source of life itself. And because we are that source of life in this earth, we cannot shift our focus to those things that sustain the physical. because the food that sustains the body does not do anything to enhance the spirit. However, the spirit that keeps the body alive, that gives life to this physical body, is capable of going far beyond the physical food of this earth and feeding and keeping alive this body. We are more capable of being sustained because we are spiritual than we are not knowing that we are spiritual. It is not beneficial to humanity to say Christianity sustains me, because it doesn't. It is not beneficial to say that any religion sustains you, because it doesn't. There are more pastors, preachers, priests, teachers of religious edicts on this earth than any in this country, the place else on this earth. And look at the damnable state that we're in. Look at how we are deteriorated. Look at how divided we are, and all of it has its beginnings in the church. Of hate is in the church. The power is in the church. The power of misogyny is in the church. And when I say church, I'm talking about the church, the synagogue, the mosque, all of them. You cannot find a greater source of misogyny and racism than the mosque, the church, the synagogue. We at some are going to have to begin to shift our focus from the philosophies of this earth that have been developed by those who care nothing about this earth. We got to shift from that to the reality of who we are. And that shifting is based upon the depth of our desire. You cannot have 1 foot in church and 1 foot in spirituality. You cannot sit in the mosque and live in the spiritual realm. You cannot worship in the synagogue and embrace the reality that you are Elohim. You cannot seek to increase your benefits in this earth in terms of your monetary material standards in this earth. Focus on that and not focus on spirituality and expect to grow. If you are focused on the spiritual aspect, everything else will be added as needed. I doubt very seriously if there is anyone on this phone or on Zoom who has had an income less than mine over the years. Yet I have been sustained. It is not the income that sustains me. It is the embracing of who I am that sustains me. Because I seek the kingdom first. I seek to be righteous above everything else. And as a result of that, everything else is added. I use me as because I don't know about yours. I do know about me. I know where we have been. I know how we have made it financially. It is not because of a big income. It's because of the embracing of the reality of being spiritual, and we did not understand it. That has brought us to this place. The thing that sustains is believing the spiritual, even though I cannot explain, even though there are times I don't even know what it means. When I made the statement, when you see God, it won't. You would be surprised, basically, because I had no clue what I was talking about, but I believed it. Embrace it. There is nothing physical, material in the embrace. And one of the understandings of that, examples of that is When I had that Rolex watch, I saw that I was embracing it, and it became a distraction, and I gave it away. Nothing in this material world is worthy of my focus. Nothing in this material world should be worthy of your focus. Do we have thoughts of it? Yes, but it never becomes a focal point. The focal point is always moving forward, knowing that you don't know what you don't know. And that's the reason that you move forward. That's the energy that propels you to move forward, because you don't know what you don't know. And when you know it, then there's something else that you don't know. So you keep moving. You keep this journey without hesitance, without doubt, always knowing that there is something you don't know. And the one thing I the most to know that you don't know is yourself. The thing that we don't know is ourselves. And the more we learn about ourselves, the more we learn how to embrace true spirituality. The resurrection of Jesus was not the resurrection of a man. It was the resurrection of the truth. And what does that mean? We talk about that. But what does it mean? Yeshua, one who delivers. So it's a resurrection of the truth that delivers us from the bondage of this material world, so that we can become dominated in the manner that in which we were created to dominate it. We return to intent in order to do this. There is absolutely nothing that should become a distraction to us for more than a few seconds, because we are capable of knowing what distractions are. And even if we cannot overcome the distractions, we have each other. We know that we are the keepers of each other. We are the ones who help each other grow beyond the distraction so that we can stay the course. Religion is not the way. Occupations are not the way. Professions, careers are not the way. Jesus did not say your occupation, your profession, your career, your education, your intellect is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus said, I am the way. And whatever come after I am, as we talked about, is what you are. I am the way. I am the pathway. I am the pathway to truth. I am the pathway to enlightenment. I am the pathway to life itself. Because when you travel and you are enlightened as you travel it, then you become life itself. And in doing so, you become the life for everything in this earth. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you.
The only thing I'll say, I mean, that's that's the revelation that was deposited in us. I think today it kind of sums up the whole day. It just kind of, you just gave the insight of what our identity is and should look to us. But it just kind of sums up what our identity is. And I know we've said, understanding who we are, but that's just the illustration of what it looks like. I mean, that's I couldn't say it any better or different, but you just gave an illustration of what we look like or what we should look like.
Thank you, sir. But that's what I see. That's what I've been shown. That's the pathway that I see that we're on, and that's ahead of us as we travel. Don't see it in it. And I promise you, if you embrace it because you know it's the righteous thing to do, your life will be totally different. It doesn't mean it won't have obstacles, but it does mean those obstacles will become stepping stones. Those obstacles will become calisthenics for your soul. Those obstacles will become understand wisdom that's been escaping you. Those obstacles will bring peace to the troubled places in your heart. Those obstacles will bring peace to your mind. Those obstacles will give your soul rulership over your mind. Those obstacles are not there for destruction. They are there to strengthen, always. Always. The spiritual is the only thing that's real. Everything else deteriorates, including this body. But the spiritual never does. We have the power to make this material world enduring. The reason it is so temporal is because our thoughts are so, our understandings of the spiritual are so limited. Our desires for the spiritual are mitigated by our desire for the material. We have the power to transform the temporal into something that's much more enduring. We have the power to overcome death as we know it and embrace death as it should be. I'm done. Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions or comments for today? It seems like always at the end we get a lot to digest there. Any other questions or comments for today? If not, I think it's a good place to put a pin in it and reflect and absorb. And I hope everyone really think about the pastor just said it. It kind of sunk into me immediately as you're saying it. That's just you want to know what we should look like. Listen and take a look at what he just said, and that's what our identity should look like. And we should just feel it, really, not necessarily just try to. It's not something you keep score of either. Like, there's no need to keep score of good, bad. Just be. Now you just gave a good illustration of what we should look like and how we should function. But if there's nothing else to be said today, we can pick up tomorrow morning. But I appreciate everybody being on the call this morning.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Bye,
Thank you, Ed.
everybody.
Thank you.